Now it's time for a Gravitas exclusive. Our guest today was left out in the sun to die as a newborn. Not only did she survive the day she was born, she has grown up in a violent Afghanistan under the repressive rule of the Taliban, rising up through the ruins around her to become one of the first female members of the Afghan parliament. In office, she has survived 2 assassination attempts. Last year, she embarked on a mission that could change Afghanistan forever. As a member of the peace negotiation team, she's sitting in front of those who tried to kill her. She is talking to the Taliban for peace in Afghanistan. Earlier this week, I spoke with Fawzia Koofi, learned more about her inspiring life story and how her mission is going to protect the rights of women in Afghanistan. Fawzia Koofi, welcome to WION.
Thank you.
I want to start with what's happening in your country, a spiral of violence. In the latest, we've seen 3 women journalists being killed. What do you make of this new trend in Afghanistan?
Well, unfortunately, Afghanistan has been in war for 40 years, over 4 decades now, and an active war. And some of us, we have grown up in war, and we lose life in war. Women of Afghanistan have been the main victim of both Taliban time and also the current active war. Unfortunately, what happens in the country in terms of the targeted killing, it's a no one's responsibility show. At the end of the day, no one takes responsibility for what happens. I think it's because of the fear these extremist groups have from the strength and the power of civil society and women rights activists and even the journalists. These are values that the extreme groups are against it. So therefore, by silencing the woman, by silencing the journalists, they think they can get more power, which is a very wrong perception, because I think Afghanistan now is in a transformation of generation. And by silencing a generation, you cannot stop the next generation. And exactly for the same reason that we really have to give an importance to the peace process, a priority and a focus that will hopefully result peace and stability in Afghanistan and in larger context in the region.
Your own personal story, Fawzia, is very, very inspiring. You've survived 2 assassination attempts, and the last one was only last year when the negotiations with the Taliban had begun. And yet you are a part of the Afghanistan government's negotiation team. What is it like to negotiate peace with the people who tried to kill you? And what is it like to be the only woman sometimes in the room carrying forward these negotiations?
It is extremely challenging job for any woman. To negotiate with an extreme military group. I think anywhere in the world, that's not a pleasant job, I would say. And for some of us who have been victim of this war, looking at people who not only, targeted you individually, but killed so many people in front of your eyes, took so many lives that you loved them, you had connection with them, you knew them, they were talents, they could have been a future leader in Afghanistan on many areas. So that is frustrating, but in the meantime, I think it sometimes also gave me power, because I feel like with a group that only 20 years back would not recognize women as a human being with equal rights, they now negotiate, and we negotiate business, real business. And we try to demonstrate power, not only and logic, not only just be there in the table, but meaningful participation. So to summarize, I think it's a very stressful and difficult task, what we do, but exactly for the same reasons that no more bloodshed in Afghanistan, no more victim of war. We really want to end this, and we are here for the same reason, and that is something that keeps me individually going.
What is the biggest stumbling block in the negotiations as far as women's rights are concerned?
This is the only negotiation where women's rights will be discussed. And when Taliban, actually presented their draft agenda, they clearly put discussion on women's Islamic rights and also women's traditional rights. Women traditional right is not something we can discuss because every part of the country has their own tradition. But women Islamic rights, we're asking women Islamic rights, but of course Taliban interpretation of Islamic rights is so different from the rest of the country. So therefore, I think this is going to be women's rights will be a major issue for discussion. What we hope is that we will be able to preserve the liberties and rights of people in Afghanistan as a result of this peace deal.
Right, and I keep coming back to your own story. As I said, it's very inspiring, Fawzia, and I want you to tell our viewers more about your journey to the parliament in Afghanistan. It's been a remarkable tale, really. And I've read that as a newborn, the 19th out of 23 children in your family, your mother left you out in the sun to die. Is that true?
Well, it's a very long story, and actually I have written a book about my story. It's a memoir. So you have one part of it in your hand. Yeah, my mother has gone through so much as a woman in a traditional society, and like my mother, many women still unfortunately experience, the burden of wrong aspects of tradition and war, because most of these our lives, what we experience, is also a product of war. So she suffered so much that she didn't want another girl to suffer as much as she suffered. So when I was born, and of course, then delivery was not in the hospital, it was in the home, and there was no medical facilities. I was born at home, and everybody was busy with my mother, and I was left out in the sun. By the time my mother was okay, I already had sunburns in my face. But my mother actually substituted that first day with her love and affection forever, and I was always her favorite daughter.
I'm sure you were. What inspired you to become one of the first female members of parliament in Afghanistan, in a country like Afghanistan especially?
Well, I come from a political family. My father was a member of parliament. He was killed also on a peace mission. He gathered a lot of people to come to talk to Mujahideen, jihadi groups then, to convince them not to fight, and he was killed on the way, so on a peace mission, basically. I come from a political family. Politics probably is in my gene, but after the collapse of Taliban in 2001, what I have experienced as a woman during Taliban, the injustice, the discrimination that I have experienced as a woman when they put my husband in jail, for instance, when I was going from one office to the other to help my husband, or even in the streets, I could see that women are being whipped for wearing a wrong color of clothes, which was not to the standard of Taliban. They were whipped on the street. They were being, brutally hit. And all of that actually gave me more determination, I would say, to change something, because I knew that whatever was going on around me was wrong. And that was the reason after the fall of Taliban that I started to, I decided to come to politics, because I thought that, politics is something that you can actually change things. And therefore, when I was elected as first woman deputy speaker of parliament in our history in 2005, it was not enough for me, because I always think that to get to the office is not enough. You really have to change. You really have to deliver. And so therefore, my struggle did not start when I was elected. My struggle started when I wanted to change, because I actually, that gave a lot of people a discomfort zone, because a lot of men were sitting in a comfort zone. They didn't even think that, someday they will have to change their position. When they started, being pushed to change their position, then they started giving a hard time to us in return. But life goes on. I mean, that's how we choose.
It's been 16 years. How much do you think you've been able to accomplish of what you set out to do?
A lot. Working on women and human rights is like, or on these social changes, like you always put your forehead in a stone and you face a stone and then you come back and you start again. It is not an easy job. It's not a tangible result. It's not a school you built and you see the result tomorrow. We have now laws that protect women from violence, and these were things that were not regarded as taboos or prohibited only 20 years back. It was regarded as part of women's life and normal. So we have now laws that protect women political participation, and even the fact that we have more women in the peace negotiation is the result of the collective efforts of women in Afghanistan and lobby that we have actually started. So long way, and that's why I think women of Afghanistan today are unavoidable. Nobody can avoid them. No, and Taliban, I think, have must understand that from these negotiations, I think they know that we cannot be avoided.
In 2012, you campaigned for the presidency of Afghanistan. Are you going to make another bid?
Why not?
Well, all the very best to you. And my final question to you, in a few days from now, the world will celebrate International Women's Day. What does this mean for the women of Afghanistan? Do they see this with a sense of cynicism, or is there hope? How do they feel about events like these?
A lot of concerns, and valid concerns, as we celebrate International Women's Day in Afghanistan, because people are worried about the return of a government which denied the 55% of the population's rights, which are women. But in the meantime, the resilience of women in Afghanistan, the strength, the passion that they have demonstrated over the period of war and horrible life, demonstrate that women of Afghanistan will never give up.
FawziaKoofi, it was a pleasure speaking to you. More power to you. May you keep inspiring young girls, not just in Afghanistan, but the world over.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.